What's going on, you guys? It's your least favorite YouTuber, Sodium285, and the time has come. Ever since Spider-Man No Way Home and Morbius came out, you've been asking me to update my ranking of the Spider-Man movies. Well, here it is, but this time I'm actually including both Morbius and both Venom movies. Now I want to clarify something with you guys. My list isn't the right list, nor is it the wrong list. It's just my personal list. Kind of like what Sean Chandler says at the beginning of all of his ranking videos. No list is right or wrong. We are all going to disagree, and that's perfectly fine because, in my opinion, every list is valid. But without further ado, let's dive into my new ranking of all of the Spider-Man movies from the worst to the best. Number 12. Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Now, I know that both Venom movies have a very dedicated fan base, which is perfectly fine. You're allowed to like what you like. But I'm sorry, I do not enjoy these films at all. I actually hate both of them, especially this one. This is one of the most agonizing superhero films I have ever seen. I wanted to strangle both Eddie Brock and the Venom symbiote throughout the entire movie. They were both loathsome big idiots that were very much the worst part of this film, which is a very bad thing when you have the titular character being the worst part of your movie. The plot was boring and repetitive of the first one, and there were such other loathsome characters such as Anne Wing. No offense to Michelle Williams, but I'm sorry, didn't care for her character. Like I said, extremely agonizing to watch. In fact, I felt more sympathetic towards Cletus Cassidy and the Carnage symbiote than I did towards Eddie and Venom, which is the worst thing this movie does. Carnage is the last Spider-Man villain you should ever feel sympathetic towards. So yeah, despise this film with every fiber of my body, so I'm just gonna move on to something a bit more fun to talk about, even if it's still something I hate. Number 11. Venom. Like I said, I hate this movie. However, unlike a lot of people, I think this was actually superior to its sequel because of three things. I did think the opening scene with its horror elements that I think kind of gel well with Venom was a little promising. I also really like Stan Lee's cameo. Granted, he can never do really wrong when he's cameoing in something. And the scene where Eddie meets Anne's new boyfriend, I got to poke fun at him, so I enjoyed that. However, after the opening, it was downhill from there. The characters were loathsome, unlikable, and big idiots. The plot was very boring. I ended up not caring about any of the characters or the movie itself. It only became worse as it proceeded and became more agonizing by the second. Look, if you love these Venom movies, great. I just can't stand them. I'm not sure whether I can sit through a third Venom movie. So, let's move on. Number 10. Morbius. Now, I don't think there should be many arguments against Morbius being in my bottom three. I mean, this film is very bad, but to explain why I have this above both Venom movies, it comes down to three things. Not only was the opening scene a bit more interesting and did a good setup for the film, but also I thought the acting was a lot better than in the Venom movies. Jared Leto, Matt Smith, the main girl, I keep forgetting her name, they elevated the script so you had three strong leads, but also this film is just way too bland. It doesn't do anything interesting with the superhero material or the vampire material. I mean, even though I didn't want to strangle anyone or slap anyone in the face, it was just becoming boring by the second. And I will say though, going from Venom Let There Be Carnage to Morbius was like going from Batman v Superman to Suicide Squad 2016 for me. So, improvement, I guess. Still a very bad film in my opinion. Number 9. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, if you've been a fan of my channel for a while, I've made it no secret that I am not a fan of this film. I'm sorry guys, I don't like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And I have been given a little bit of heat on it and explaining stuff that I had complained about in my previous ranking. So you could kind of say unto this movie what Sean Chandler is to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. However, I recently did in fact make a video called Why I Don't Like Miles Morales and Why I Love Rocky, Adam, and Aisha to explain some of the stuff that I didn't like about Into the Spider-Verse, but I'm going to try and summarize right here. And I'll say this. I think the animation is great. The voice acting is pretty good for the most part. The music is amazing. I really liked What's Up Danger. Stanley's cameo, probably the most impactful emotional scene in the film. Because like I said, he can never do any wrong when he's in cameos. And I do appreciate the filmmakers trying to make Miles Morales, a character who I often found bland and unnecessary, his own character. But I don't think the execution was all that great. Again, just me. It relied on most of the supporting characters, from the other Spider People to Miles' classmates to even his own father, being kind of jerks towards Miles just to make Miles relatable, but in doing so, I ended up not caring about any of the characters nor Miles himself. Yeah, I didn't care about the father-son dynamic between Jefferson and Miles. The other Spider People were annoying and unnecessary. Some emotional scenes came out of nowhere where they're all saying goodbye and they got all upset. I was like, whoa, weren't you all being jerks to Miles like a few scenes ago? I'd probably think a bit more highly of this movie if it was called Spider-Man Miles Morales, due to it feeling more like a Miles Morales movie guest starring the Spider-Verse. Miles was the only Spider-Person portrayed as a hero, making him look like a spotlight stealer. I don't think that was the right story to tell with Peter B. Parker, especially since we don't really know much about him in terms of his personality, and none of the comedy landed for me. Look, if you love Into the Spider-Verse, great. I just don't. I'm sorry. Let's just agree to disagree. Number 8. Spider-Man 2. Okay, hear me out before you all have a go at me. We have now entered the realm of what I like to call the okay movies. But I'm sorry, people, I don't think Spider Man 2 has aged very well. And while it's certainly not the worst Spider Man film, and like I said, I think it's okay, it's also the most frustrating Spider Man film because there is stuff that holds up really well, but there is also stuff that doesn't hold up very well. The stuff that holds up very well are stuff like the amazing visuals and the action sequences. Do I need to go on about the train battle? The great acting, especially J.K. Simmons. This might be at his best, which is saying a lot since he's always on fire. James Franco, Alfred Molina, they were also great. However, kind of like Into the Spider-Verse, and this is where I talk about the stuff that I don't think holds up very well. The movie relied on pretty much everyone around Peter being a jerk to him, not to mention Peter himself I found to be a bit selfish and unlikable throughout the film. And that's the thing, I think from a storytelling perspective, I wasn't very much in love with it. I don't think it holds up that well. And here's the elephant in the roof that kind of brings this film down. His powers go away for absolutely no reason. Now, people have tried to say that he lost his powers because everything going on in his life. He was losing jobs. He was losing Mary Jane. It was affecting him. He didn't want to be Spider-Man anymore. That's why his powers went away. Because deep down he didn't want to. And to those people, I have to say, that's your defense? I'm sorry, guys, but I don't buy that argument for 1 second. I mean, my eyes don't go blind whenever I see a bad film. Say when I was watching Batman v Superman, I was like, oh, this sucks. I don't want to watch this anymore. Boop! I stopped working. That's not what happened, because that's not how organs work. Something that's part of your body doesn't magically stop functioning because you want it to stop functioning. That would be like saying people in wheelchairs chose to be in wheelchairs. And I'm sorry, people might say, but this was him learning his lesson about power and responsibility. And while I like the concept of challenging that, that's what makes this film frustrating because they had a very good concept. Execution, it wasn't good. And people might say, he had to learn to let go of Mary Jane and to put his responsibilities as Spider Man first. And I understand this was trying to be like a Superman 2, but A, didn't he already learn that at the end of the first film? And B, it wasn't executed well because then at the end, Mary Jane abandons her fiance, the astronaut guy, who was shown to be a decent human being, at the altar on the wedding day to be with Peter in her wedding dress. And Peter's like, huh, I don't care if the guy lost his wife, I got my girl. So it kind of made them look selfish, and that's another thing. The romance between Peter and Mary Jane was very much one of, if not the driving forces of this film, and because I couldn't really stand these two together throughout this film, it drags it down for me. Look, you're free to have Spider-Man 2 as one of your favorite superhero films, just don't be a jerk to anyone who doesn't. Number 7. Spider-Man 3. Now, you need to understand something as we get into this. Spider-Man 3 is a complete guilty pleasure of mine and has a special place in my heart. This was, in fact, the very first superhero movie I ever saw. I remember I was about 6 years old, getting the film from a book fair at my school, and back then, as a kid, I loved this film. Obviously, growing up, I started to see the cracks in this film to the point I would describe it as okay. But I have to say, even watching it today, I still have a lot of fun and enjoy it a lot. And what this movie has above all the films below it is that it's entertaining and enjoyable, even if it has its issues, from the too many plot lines to Peter and MJ being quite insufferable characters, to Gwen Stacy being unnecessary, no offense to Bryce Dallas Howard, to the upside down kiss between Spider-Man and Gwen being stupid. However, other stupid moments like Emo Peter, in my opinion, had a so stupid it was actually quite unintentionally funny quality to it that I was laughing at how stupid it was. So I can't really fault this film for giving me some entertainment and making me laugh. Thomas Hayden Church even gave a really good performance as Sandman, and J.K. Simmons was absolutely on fire as always. So, even though I don't think Spider-Man 3 is a great film, I think I liked it somewhat more than I disliked it. It's a C film, but it provided B-movie entertainment for me. Number 6. Spider-Man. We have now entered the realm of what I like to call the really good Spider-Man films. So yeah, don't be fooled by my frustrating relationship with Spider-Man 2. I think the first Spider-Man film, directed by Sam Raimi, is really good and still holds up very well. It's super entertaining. Now, it's quite the opposite of Spider-Man 2, actually. On the technical level, such as the visual effects and even some of the action sequences, I don't think it holds up that well. However, on a creative and storytelling side, I think it holds up for the most part. The origin story was well told, and well, like I said, some of the CGI is questionable, but I still say this movie holds up. Peter Parker had some pretty good growth. The performances are really good. The supporting characters were fun additions, especially J.K. Simmons' J. Jonah Jameson. And you know what? I actually tolerated Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane in this film, mostly because she looked like she actually cared about the role and had fun with it, compared to the sequels. There are several iconic moments in this movie, such as the upside down kiss when Spider-Man is holding the gauntlet and Mary Jane. I could just go on, but I think a lot of my praise has already been said. So yeah, I really like the first Raimi film. I think it still holds up. Number 5. The Amazing Spider-Man 2. This is probably the hottest take out of all of the films I really like. For a lot of people, this would be in their bottom 2. So before all of you raise your pitchforks and torches in the comments below, please hear me out and let me explain myself. Let me preface something, in fact. When this film came out, I was only 13 years old, which means this would have actually been the first Spider-Man film I would have been age appropriate to watch in theaters. So it kind of has that soft spot in my heart. But even watching it more recently, I think it's better than I remember. Not to mention, it's been enhanced by not only Spider-Man No Way Home, just like every other live action Spider-Man film, bar Venom and Morbius, but also by Sonic 2, because the opening, when Spider-Man's stopping crime, well, it's in the beginning of Sonic 2, Sonic's stopping crime and is being very reckless. Sounds familiar? And not only that, things I really appreciate about Amazing Spider-Man 2 really come about. For example, it focuses on character dynamics and relationships, which allow for the film to be a Peter Parker story first and foremost, and heartfelt moments landed for me thanks to the great character dynamics. In fact, this movie actually had the opposite effect of Venom for me, where it had a bit of a shaky opening with the Parker's parents storyline, which I've actually been a big defender of, but it did drag a little on in that opening with the plane crash. But it got better and better and more exciting as the film progressed. Now, was Rhino unnecessary? Yes, but I will say his screen time is so minimum that it doesn't really affect the plot too much. And yes, the film has a lot of plot lines, and yes, there was studio interference. But I think these plot lines come together better thanks to A, Oscorp, and B, coming together because of one central theme. Can Spider Man give people hope? And more importantly, can he give himself hope? And that is what I really love about this film. It's explaining whether Spider Man can give people hope. So, look, if you hate this film, fine, but don't take away the fact that I really like The Amazing Spider Man 2. Number 4, The Amazing Spider Man. We have now entered the realm of all of the Spider Man movies that I really love. And yes, I love The Amazing Spider Man. And while it does tell the same origin story, I personally enjoyed this one more because it was used in a way to make a compelling and heartfelt character arc for Peter. I was extremely invested in Peter and his journey throughout the film, and I found him very relatable and very likable. He had some really great growth throughout this film. I was also very invested in his relationships with Aunt May, Uncle Ben, Gwen Stacy, Captain Stacy, which allowed for the emotional moments to hit me hard, and it also helped Peter become a better person. Spider Man, to me at least, has always been a character about self conflict, self doubt, self worth, finding his purpose and place in the world. And I felt this movie captured it really well. I think this movie is criminally underrated, one of the most underrated comic book films ever made, and I will defend this film to the days I die. So yeah, I love The Amazing Spider-Man. Number 3, Spider-Man Homecoming. This is one of the most fun, enjoyable, and most rewatchable films in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, and even on this list, it managed to be a refreshing experience while simultaneously still capturing the essence of Spider-Man and still staying true to who he is wonderfully, giving us an amazing Spider-Man experience. Peter's arc of learning that it's not the suit that makes him Spider-Man, but more so his determination to do the right thing, no matter what the cost is, which makes him Spider-Man, was very compelling and well told and well executed. This is perfectly illustrated when he decides to leave Liz at the homecoming dance to stop the Vulture in his homemade suit, and giving us probably one of the most powerful scenes, maybe in any Spider-Man scene, where he lifts himself out of the rubble. So, I love this film so much. Number 2, Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, I'll be real with you guys. This film and what I have for number 1 are very much tied for different reasons, but tied nonetheless. I absolutely love Spider-Man Far From Home. It had an excellent and super compelling character arc for Peter, where he learned not to worry about being as good of a hero as others like Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, etc., but to be a good hero in his own right. And I think that is something we can all learn from. The action sequences are out of this world, especially the illusion scene. Not only is it visually stunning, but it psychologically challenges Peter, and that's what Mysterio does. As well as the comedy in this movie being very on point, the emotional scenes hit me hard, and the way Mysterio psychologically challenges Peter in the illusion scene being scaring but also amazing at the same time. This led to Peter seeming broken after that illusion, filled with guilt for trusting Mysterio blindly. Because that's the thing, Mysterio lied to him, manipulated him, and used him in a way, and Peter felt hurt over it. So look, while this film may have broken the hearts of some people, Seeing people treat this movie like garbage breaks my own.
You broke my heart!
You broke mine first. My real one, not the chocolate one.
Number 1. Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, this was a film that I was both excited for, but also very nervous. Excited, especially after the post-credits scene of Spider-Man Far From Home. I was looking forward to this film for 2 whole years. But I was nervous because of the behind-the-scenes leaks of Toby and Andrew coming back, and I was afraid that they were going to maybe steal the spotlight and take the film that should be Tom Holland's Peter's film. And I was like, oh no, they're going to be the new Tommy Oliver and Wes Collins. And it's going to be Dimensions in Danger all over again. You see, I love Power Rangers. I've loved it since I was little, but Dimensions in Danger, man, that crossover really killed a lot of my love for Power Rangers before I gave the Boom Studios comics a chance. So I was really nervous that this was going to be Dimensions in Danger all over again. And also Into the Spider-Verse did kind of give me uncomfortable Dimensions in Danger vibes. And I was worried that Toby and Andrew would be the new Tommy and Wes. But thankfully, it did not turn out to be that case at all. If anything, this was more like Day of the Doctor, Turtles Forever, Once a Ranger, Spider-Wars, or Spider-Man the Animated Series. This is one of the most emotional roller coasters I have ever seen, in a fantastic way. Peter learning that he had to make the ultimate sacrifice and lose everything he held dear for the greater good and safety of others had me in tears, added to the numerous emotional gut punches. The other Peters were used well and were more than just fan service without them overshadowing Tom Holland's Peter and his journey throughout the movie. They were secondary characters used appropriately, and I like that. And the fact that they were only used in the third act meant that it allowed Tom Holland's Peter to form his own personal relationships with the villains, making the battle between his Peter and the Green Goblin of Defoe feel very intense, brutal, but also very emotional. Just thinking about this film sometimes brings me to tears. I know some of people think this film is kind of overrated, and that's fine, but I don't think it is. I love this. So there you have it, true believers. That is my updated ranking of all of the Spider-Man films from the worst to the best. Now I know some people, because I put all 3 of them at the top, and maybe because I put those 2 after, people are going to call me an MCU fanboy or an Andrew Garfield fanboy for having those at the top, for basically making a hierarchy. But lest we forget, there are some people who have all 3 of the Nolan Batman films, not only as their 3 favorite Batman films, but as their top 3 favorite superhero films. Yes, that includes The Dark Knight Rises, which to a lot of people is the weakest of the 3. So, and here's some stuff that, say, Chris Stuckman has to say about any people who dislike the film.
Now, The Dark Knight is one of my favorite movies of all time. Batman Begins is one of my favorite movies of all time. Christopher Nolan's one of my favorite directors of all time. This movie comes with so much anticipation, especially from someone who loves Batman as much as I do. And I'm going to be honest with you, if you don't at least like this movie, why do you even go to see movies? Honestly, why do you see movies if you don't at least like this movie? This is one of the best comic book films I've ever seen. One of the most emotionally resonant films I've seen in years, and it's also the best film I've seen all year. The Dark Knight Rises is absolutely fantastic in every way that you possibly need a movie.
Now, to be fair, that was 10 years ago when the movie had just come out. Chris Stuckman has matured ever since. He probably still holds the movie to that high standard, but he's become more respectful towards people, I'm sure of it. But let me show you what Will Wolf has to say about people who dislike The Dark Knight Rises. He still respects people, just showing you what he thinks of people who dislike The Dark Knight Rises.
In case you're wondering, this is my second favorite superhero movie of all time, right behind The Dark Knight, obviously. And yes, that means that number 3 is The Dark Knight Rises. One day, I'll do a video retrospective on that movie, because you're all wrong about it.
And I understand that Sam Raimi is a favorite director of a lot of people, but personally I don't have favorite directors unless they're Pixar ones, so they haven't really done superhero films, except for Brad Bird, who only did The Incredibles. But anyway, that's where I'm going to end it. Let me know what your ranking is in the comments below. And if you like this video, you can leave a like, and if you didn't, you can leave a dislike. And if you like my content, you can subscribe to this channel. I talk Marvel, Ninja Turtles, Sonic the Hedgehog, Power Rangers. So if that's anything down your alley, this is the place for you. And if you're already subscribed, make sure you're still subscribed, because YouTube may have randomly unsubscribed you since the last time you were here. Anyway, I'll hopefully be back soon. Remember, trust your judgment. Sodium285 out.
If the world chooses to become my enemy, I will fight like I always have.